In Season 2, Episode 6 of House of the Dragon, we saw Seasmoke be a bit of a cheeky boy, the return of Viserys Targaryen, and Rhaenyra and Mysaria almost clap cheeks. In this video, I'll break down the episode and point out all the Easter eggs, references, and hidden lore that you might have missed. Kicking things off, we have a few additions to the opening tapestry. There is now a depiction of the Battle of Rook's Rest. It shows Meleys and Sunfire laying on the ground, with Vhagar the only one left flying. Black blood oozes from Meleys, staining the tapestry, symbolizing that Team Black and Rhaenyra are now suffering after the loss. On Dragonstone, we see that Corlys has accepted the position of Hand of the Queen to Rhaenyra. Last episode, Jace and Rhaenyra hatched a plan to get more dragon riders. By poring over the histories, she aims to use anyone with a drop of Targaryen blood and invite them to claim one of the many riderless dragons. Throughout the books, it is suggested that only those with blood of the dragon or Valyrian ancestry can hope to bond with a dragon. The books indicate that this bond is a product of ancient blood magic that created a sort of magical tether between dragons and Valyrian bloodlines. However, this might all be propaganda to elevate the Targaryens above other men, and it could be just a story to prevent anyone else from even attempting to claim a dragon and take that power for themselves. It should be noted, the exact way to bond with a dragon is a bit of a mystery. Certain characters in the books who do not appear to have any Valyrian ancestry have managed to claim a dragon, so it will be interesting to see how the show portrays this fundamental element of Targaryen exceptionalism. Rhaenyra discovers that a Targaryen once married into House Darklyn, though the books make no mention of this character. But Rhaenyra believes there is a possibility that their descendants possess a drop of blood of the dragon, and members of House Darkland might have the magical potential to bond with a dragon. Steffon Darklyn, the Lord Commander of Rhaenyra's Queensguard, is selected to make an attempt to claim Seasmoke, who was once the dragon of Laenor Velaryon. It should be noted, there has never been a case where a dragon has been claimed by a new rider while their old rider still lives, so Seasmoke being ready to accept a new rider might indicate that Laenor has actually died off in Essos. Sir Steffon makes his attempt to claim Seasmoke. These characters assisting him in the attempt are the Dragon Keepers. They were responsible for looking after and protecting the dragons. We saw them in Season 1 instructing the younger dragon riders on how to control the beasts. The song that they sing is the same one that Daemon sung to Vermithor back in Season 1. The idea behind it is to soothe a dragon, familiarize them with humans in the hopes that it will make them open to being claimed. Unfortunately for Steffon, Seasmoke is a bit of a prankster. At first, it looks like he is allowing the Kingsguard to mount him, but when Steffon gets too close, he sets him on fire. In a way, it is little wonder that Steffon failed. He regarded the dragons as gods. What man can hope to tame or control a god? I imagine that this subconscious thought betrayed any notion of power in his blood, and is part of the reason why Seasmoke deemed him unworthy. Meanwhile, at Harrenhal, Daemon is still having nightmarish visions induced by the curse of Harrenhal. Daemon relives the moment from Season 1 when King Viserys exiled him for naming Viserys' dead son heir for a day. In the original scene, Viserys delivered Daemon's exile with anger, but in the memory, Viserys delivers it with sadness, symbolizing how this moment was probably the saddest moment in Daemon's life. It was the day he was removed as heir, and it led to a massive rift between the brothers. Daemon struggles to leave the throne room and the memory, which also symbolizes his inability to move on from this moment. He has never truly accepted the fact that he is no longer Viserys' heir. Daemon is at his breaking point, growing more and more unhinged with each dream, and ends up blaming Sir Simon Strong, claiming that the food or wine has been tampered with. It is interesting that Daemon, who controls a dragon, a creature of fire and magic, is unwilling to accept the reason for his nightmares might be magical in origin. Instead of staying in Harrenhal to face the ghost of his past, Daemon decides to flee. After all, he has failed to rally the River Lords, which he had hoped to stake his own claim on the Iron Throne. For his entire life, Daemon has looked at the throne as a prize that was taken away from him. His entire arc at Harrenhal has been all about his inability to accept that he is not Viserys' true heir, and if he wants to achieve any goals in his life, he can't do it alone. This season has demonstrated that Rhaenyra and Daemon cannot rule alone. Each has qualities that prevent them from doing so. Daemon has strength and boldness to act, but he rarely considers the consequences of his actions and lacks a political touch. Likewise, Rhaenyra is apprehensive about taking action for fear of their consequences. Her indecision has led to her own council not respecting her. Only by relying on each other will Daemon and Rhaenyra be able to rule rule. They are two halves of a whole. It seems Daemon finally understands that it is okay to ask others for help, and he finally develops and asks Alice for help with the River Lords. He also gets his own form of closure with Viserys, comforting his brother in a vision after the death of Aemond and their son, something that he had failed to do in real life and had regretted ever since. I think this will mark a change in Daemon. Perhaps now he will set aside his own claim on the throne and will assist Rhaenyra so that they can rule together. In the first scene, we see Jason Lannister arrive at the Golden Tooth, which is the seat of House Lefton, who are vassals of House Lannister. The Golden Tooth is like the entry point from the Westerlands into the Riverlands, and although Jason has been summoned to war by Team Green, he refuses to enter the Riverlands without Aemond and Vhagar escorting him. Daemon and Caraxes are known to be in the Riverlands, and any army entering that region of Westeros would be understandably cautious about a potential dragon attack. After all, the news of the devastation that the dragons caused at Rook's Rest will have likely spread far and wide by now. It is just as Cole said, the war has been given to the dragons. In King's Landing, the city is on the brink. Corlys and Rhaenyra's blockade have left the small folk of the city to fight over scraps, and Team Green lack the naval might to break the blockade. Earlier in the season, the Green Council had mentioned Dalton Greyjoy, who was known as the Red Kraken. The council wanted to offer him the position of Master of Ships, as the Greyjoys could likely match the naval power of House Velaryon, but Lord Greyjoy is yet to make a reply. For now, the Greens must rely on the Lannisters and Hightower ships to break the blockade. Unfortunately, they could take months to arrive to stop the Sea Snake, so instead, Aemond seeks to resolve the situation and tasks Jason Lannister's twin brother Tyland to form an alliance with the Triarchy. Remember, the Triarchy is an alliance of the free cities of Myr, Lys, and Tyrosh from Essos. Together, they were defeated by Daemon and Corlys Velaryon early on during Season 1, but by the end of the season, they had seen a resurgence, and Corlys had suffered life-threatening wounds while fighting. Aemond hopes that the Triarchy will unite with Team Green to get revenge upon Corlys, who they have warred with for decades. Aemond also sends Criston Cole and his army to take Harrenhal, but Cole's forces have been greatly depleted after their encounter with Meleys, and they have little hope against the Riverlords and Daemon on Caraxes. But Aemond promises to join Cole on Vhagar once the time is right. Notice that Aemond now carries Blackfire, the sword of Aegon the Conqueror. The blade was seen as a symbol of the king and the right to rule. Aemond carrying it now symbolizes to both himself and the realm that he wishes to be seen as the king. Aemond fires Alicent from the Small Council. It's no secret that Aemond has mummy issues. For his entire life, Alicent has not been a very good mother, being distant and cold. So instead, he sought motherly comfort in the arms of a brothel worker, which has likely given him the idea that love is transactional. So now that Alicent has no real use for him, he discards her. On Driftmark, Alan is named as Corlys Velaryon's first mate. Notice that Alan wears a turban, and later in the episode, it is revealed that he has silver hair, marking him as having Valyrian blood. Alan shaves his head to hide this fact. In a way, the silver hair is a birthright that marks Alan as a child of Corlys Velaryon, and Alan's choice to shave it symbolizes that he is not seeking to be granted all of the things that come along with being Corlys' son, and instead he seeks to forge his own path free from the shadow of the Sea Snake, which is the complete opposite of his brother Addam, who is resentful that Corlys never accepted them as his sons. It seems that Addam is willing to accept his Valyrian ancestry, which might be part of the reason why Seasmoke chose him, but more on that later. Last episode, Mysaria said that there is more than one way to fight a war, and in King's Landing, hers and Rhaenyra's plan starts to come together. Last episode, Rhaenyra tasked one of her servants to seek out Diana. Diana was abused by Aegon last season, so is no friend of the Greens. Together with the madam from the brothel, they stoke rebellion among the small folk of King's Landing. They highlight the divide between the ruling class and everyone else, and the plan works, eventually leading to a riot in King's Landing. Make note of this dude who got his arm chopped off by the King's Guard. In the books, there is a very important one-armed small folk character named the Shepherd, who goes on to play an important role later in the story. I suspect that this man will become the Shepherd in later seasons. Meanwhile, on Dragonstone, Rhaenyra seeks to arm herself. Throughout the season, Rhaenyra has been studying the histories, and we have seen a handful of images of Visenya Targaryen, Aegon the Conqueror's sister wife. Visenya ruled with Aegon and was as much a warrior as the Conqueror was. Rhaenyra seems to idolize Visenya and her boldness. She seeks to be respected just as Visenya was, and be seen as more than just a woman, but a capable ruler. To me, this this sword looks to be made of Valyrian steel. The only problem with that is House Targaryen only ever had 2 Valyrian steel swords, Dark Sister and Blackfire, so adding a third would be a bit of a departure from the books. But what do you think? Is the show giving Rhaenyra a Valyrian steel blade, or is this just a regular sword? Mysaria and Rhaenyra further stoke the spark of rebellion in King's Landing, sending ships and supplies to the city in an attempt to turn the power of the smallfolk against the Greens. As the Greens scramble for Rhaenyra's supplies, we also see Hugh Hammer. Thus far, he has been portrayed as an honest man who seeks only to help his wife and sick daughter. But during the riot, we saw a glimpse of the violence that he is capable of. Meanwhile, Larys Strong suggests himself as Hand of the King to Aemond, but instead, Aemond chooses to summon Otto Hightower to serve as Hand. Throughout the series, Larys has been seen to serve only those who can further his rise. First, it was Alicent, and then King Aegon, but now Aemond refuses to accept his counsel, so instead, Larys goes back to Aegon, offering to help him to stay alive. Aegon fears for his life now that Aemond is in power. When asked if he remembered the battle, Aegon said that he didn't, but it is pretty clear this is a lie, and he is only telling Aemond what he wants to hear. He now has an understanding that Aemond is capable of killing him for the throne, and through his alliance with Larys Strong, he hopes to survive Aemond. In the Vale, Rhaena discovers evidence of a rather large dragon in the mountains. She stumbles upon the burned remains of a dozen sheep. The dragon responsible is a wild dragon named Sheepstealer. Sheepstealer has never known a rider, and it is pretty clear that they are setting up Rhaena to claim the dragon. However, in the book, Sheepstealer is actually claimed by another character called Nettles, but it seems that the show is combining Rhaena with Nettles, a decision that I am not totally on board with. Nettles is one of my favorite book characters, and to see her arc absorbed into Rhaena's is a bit disappointing. This combination might also diminish Rhaena's story. In the books, towards the end of the war, Rhaena ends up hatching her dragon egg and names it Morning. In many ways, the hatchling represents a hope for the future and a new dawn for House Targaryen, but it seems the show is removing this element. Meanwhile, Seasmoke plays hide and seek with Addam. As I previously stated, Addam is Corlys Velaryon's bastard son, and likely has an amount of Valyrian blood, which might be part of the reason that Seasmoke allows Addam to claim him. Addam also has a desire to be accepted by Corlys, and is willing to embrace his Valyrian ancestry. This subconscious thought might be one of the reasons why Seasmoke accepted him, but rejected Steffon, who viewed him as a god. On a sadder note, Addam is also the half-brother to Laenor, Seasmoke's previous rider. Maybe Addam reminds Seasmoke of Laenor, and the familiar scent of Addam's blood is the real reason that Seasmoke bends to him. The episode ends with Mysaria and Rhaenyra sucking face, after Mysaria shows affectionate respect towards Rhaenyra. To be viewed as a worthy ruler is all that Rhaenyra has ever desired. It is possible that Mysaria is aware of this, and seeks to manipulate Rhaenyra through this desire in the books, so it will be interesting to see where the show takes this thread.